What's up, y'all? I'm Stephen Daniels, the founder of PureFreedom, a company I created because I believe that no one should have to live an addicted life. Thank you for tuning in to the PureFreedom podcast, where I teach people how to break free from porn addiction, the addicted lifestyle, and show them how to start living their best life. Thank you for tuning in to today's podcast. Today, we're going to talk about what it means to make a decision to be healed. What it means to make a decision to be healed when you're in recovery. This is an important topic. And the reason why is because until you make up in your mind that you want to be healed, until you decide that's what you want for your life, it's going to be hard for you to make any progress, meaningful progress, while on the road to recovery. So we're going to explore, what does it mean when I say make a decision to be healed? What does it mean to heal? As we're going through this process in recovery, it's not about just abstaining from bad behavior. It's deeper than that. So we're going to unpack that today on the podcast. And my hope is that you get to take away some important points that I'm going to give out later on so that you can start taking practical steps to your own healing and self-discovery. So I'm going to begin this conversation by describing a phase of my recovery journey. So earlier in this series, I mentioned to you all that I was confronted by my mentor when I was in college about my addiction to pornography, and I responded by trying to get help. And eventually, I had to come to a place where I was looking for hope, and I had to believe that this was actually possible for me. And that's what I shared on the last podcast. So now we fast forward and transition to around 2016. I am married and working, living my adult life, doing the things that adults do, And at this point in my recovery journey, I had done a decent job of building up some good habits. I was going to support groups. I was making sure that I held myself accountable. I was making sure that I was doing mindfulness and meditation. I was also seeking out professional help to talk to someone about what's going on in my head, what am I thinking, any negative thoughts that I have. But in spite of all that, I still found myself fighting low self-esteem. I still found myself struggling to keep negative thoughts from invading my mind on a constant basis. The issue was that I gained hope, right? But I lacked the desire to be healed. Sometimes recovery from porn addiction can feel like a chore, right? I think it's easy to slip back into negative thought patterns, habits, and routines. And the reality is that some of us have spent decades, training our brain to think in a way that keeps us in bondage to porn addiction. It can be self-defeating thoughts, unhealthy habits or rituals, negative beliefs about people or ourselves, and other things. And in all honesty, that's where I found myself at in 2016. And for the first time, I was moving along on the road to recovery with a tiny spark of hope for what my future could look like without porn, while still remaining stuck in a circle of unhealthy habits and rituals that I had spent over 10 years building. And what I lacked was a burning desire to be healed. Let me describe what that's like. Having hope that you can achieve something with no desire to achieve it is like sitting in a car with a full tank of gas and a clear GPS route, but leaving the engine off. Think about this. You know you have everything you need to reach your destination, but without the will to press the gas pedal, the car and you just stay parked. You have the potential to go somewhere, but the lack of drive keeps you stationary. That's where I was at 6 years into my recovery journey. Now, obviously, I didn't stay that way since I'm here telling you my story, but I just want you guys to understand that's the mindset that I got to along the way to where I'm at now. So some of you might be wondering, okay, well, Stephen, what changed? What happened? To put it simply, I came to a realization of something, and this realization was partly spurred on by my spouse, who was my number one accountability partner at the time. not something I recommend. And what my wife did was she challenged me throughout every step of my recovery journey. Whenever I reached a place where it was clear that I was lacking that burning desire, it didn't take her long to notice, and it didn't take her long to say something about it. What I began to realize more and more, and this is kind of a side note, is that pornography addiction in general only brings damage to romantic relationships. If you want to see statistics about this, you can go to our website at purefreedom.co/statistics. And I posted some statistics there about what porn does to marriages. Throughout this whole process, my wife and I had to have some tough conversations. And I often left them feeling like, you know what, I don't really want to mess up this marriage thing. And I've heard a lot of other men say the same thing to me. As I've talked to different men who've been married that have come into my support groups, they share the same sentiments. And the reality of it is, if we don't acknowledge that we're tearing something down that's beautiful, right? This thing that we've worked hard for, find the person that we love in our life, then it's going to be hard for us to, really heal, right? Because a part of healing is acknowledging the fault that you have in whatever circumstance you're in, whether it be in marriage or in other relationships that are broken due to your behavior. You have to acknowledge that. And so having those conversations with my wife helped me to ask myself some deeper questions, like what ignites someone's desire to be healed, like someone's desire to be free. Like if I have hope that I can be free, but I don't have a desire to do that, like what's blocking that? What's getting in the way? And that's what we're going to talk about next. So I began to ask myself these questions. I wanted to understand what's really fueling my desire to be free. What's fueling my desire to stay in recovery? So at that time, I would say that I really didn't have a great answer to those questions when I started to ask myself them and when I started to think about them. But what I knew was that if I were able to answer those, it would reveal to me the actions I needed to move forward in my recovery journey. And it's the same for you. So if you're listening to this right now and you feel like you're in this similar place to where I was at, or even if you aren't, it's good to assess where you're at, what's fueling your desire for recovery. Why do you want this? What's driving you? What's pushing you? You need to understand that. So as I looked at what my actions were saying, not just my words, but my actions, what were my actions saying to my wife? I realized something. My desire to be free at that time was fueled, in reality, it was fueled by whether or not we were in a good place in marriage. That's what was driving my desire to be free. I wanted to have a happy marriage. I wanted to have a healthy marriage. So I made sure that I did the things that I said I was going to do, just enough to make sure that she was happy with where I was at in recovery and I felt like we were in a good place. Okay. The problem with that is my actions were not fueled by the thought of a life without pornography. Pornography being totally removed from my life. So I had to shift my mindset. Yes, I wanted to be in a good place in marriage. But what I realized was that should be a result of me doing the work I need to get to the root of why I was watching pornography in the first place. And the things that I was doing at that time weren't helping me get there. What I was doing was what I like to call behavior modification, which doesn't necessarily lead to healing internally. What do I mean by behavior modification? For example, when I first started my journey through recovery, what I decided I would do initially was, hey, let's put web filters on all of my computers in the house, right? I did that. The result was that, I stopped having access to websites I would normally go to, okay? And that worked as a deterrent, but then I found ways around them. Okay. And then eventually I realized that even though I put these filters on my computer and it was blocking everything when I wanted to have access to it, I got more and more desperate to find other ways to get access to what I wanted to do. And I didn't see a shift in my mindset and the way I thought about pursuing pornography when I got triggered. All right. The underlying issue was never really addressed by the web content filter. It was just a deterrent that delayed my reaction and response to my triggers. See, sometimes focusing solely on behavior modification can lead you to changing the outside without changing the inside. What I mean by that is, I like to use this analogy. So sometimes people who commit crimes, they go to prison, they serve their time, they get out of prison, they stay out of prison, but they never manage to do anything meaningful in life due to the fact that the root of their issues were never addressed. The reason why they began a life of criminality never came to the surface. They never dealt with it. So when they got out of prison, their behavior changed because they wanted to avoid the negative consequences going back to jail. But their mind was still wounded by the effects of whatever trauma they went through, whatever life experience they went to that led them to a life of criminality in the first place. They never really healed. They were never rehabilitated. So what we're going after while we're on the road to recovery is healing and rehabilitation. We're not solely focusing on behavior modification, because if you try hard enough, you can modify your behavior. All right. But the goal is to not just change your behavior, not just change the outside, right? You want to change the inside. You want to get to the root of why you were even pursuing porn in the first place. You want to shift your mind. You want your brain to change. And that requires going deeper than just looking at how you can change a specific behavior. So some of you may be able to relate to this part of my story. So I want you to ask yourself some questions, okay? Do you find yourself getting momentary victory over your addiction only to slip back into your bad habits with no method to unpack how you got there? Okay, you might be dealing with a mindset of behavior change. Can you look at your efforts to be healed and honestly say that you are driven by a burning desire to get to the root of what's causing it? If not, you may be in a mindset of behavior change. Are your efforts driven more by behavior change than a consistent change in your internal state? That's the question we're asking. Like, what's driving your effort? Is it to obtain that life you have free of pornography? Or is it something else? Is there a secondary reward that you're focusing on? If your life free of pornography is not your primary reward, reassess what you're chasing, because that's the goal, because that's going to enhance every other area of your life. Like, we can't do this just for some momentary satisfaction of our relationship being good, some momentary satisfaction of I had a good week at work. No. When you remove porn from your life, everything is going to get better. Work, marriage relationships, family relationships, your finances, everything. Depression is going to go down. Low self-esteem is going to go down. Poor self-image is going to go down. All right. Everything's going to get better. I know, because I've already been through it and I'm experiencing it now. The clouds are going to go away. Later on in another podcast, I'm going to talk about the fog that comes with pornography. This thing that blocks your thinking. You can't think normally because your mind has been scrambled up by porn. We're going to talk about that. But for now, I want everyone to take some time to focus and think about, like, what is it going to take to ignite the fire for you to have that fire, that desire to focus solely on your life minus pornography and nothing else. See, that's what I had to do. So what happened to me? All right. What happened to me in 2016? Well, let me tell you what happened was I had a critical choice to make. All right. I could choose personal growth and begin to go deeper in my recovery to understand what's at the root of my behavior, or I could risk ruining my marriage and live a mediocre life. And the option was easy for me. I chose the former. And I encourage anyone listening to this to do the same. Look, by choosing to go deeper, you may have to acknowledge that you aren't giving it your all. All right. But that's okay. It's better to acknowledge what's true and change for the better than to continue living a lie. And see, if you give low effort in recovery, you get low results. Just like anything else in life. You get in, you get out what you put in. If you put in low effort, you get low results. And putting in low effort is a sign that your desire may not be where it needs to be. So after I began to discover what was at the root of my desire to watch porn, and I began to get help dealing with that part of my belief system, I took measurable steps towards freedom. And eventually, and it took years for me, but eventually, I was able to uproot everything that was at the root of my porn addiction. And this is why I can honestly say that the more you focus on this part of recovery, that burning desire to be free, the more time and energy you invest in it, the more things you'll be able to uproot and the closer you'll get to living a porn-free life. And you will get there. Now, there's a story in the Bible about a crippled man who had been invalid for 38 years before he had an encounter with Jesus. So when Jesus saw this man, he knew he had been invalid for 38 years, but yet he asked him a question. His question was simple. Do you want to be healed? Now you have to wonder, okay, why would Jesus ask a man who he knows has been crippled his whole life if he wants to be healed? Of course he does, right? The answer is that Jesus knew that in order for the man to be healed, he had to not only believe that Jesus was capable of healing him, he had to have a desire to walk, right? He had to have a desire to be healed. Those are two different things. So whenever I begin working with someone who's just starting their recovery journey, I usually tell this story in the first meeting. And the reason why I share the story is that if they don't believe, one, that they can be healed, and they have no desire or little desire to be free, it's likely that it won't happen for them. And I need them to understand that. So let's talk about the word healed. What does it mean to actually be healed? Why do I use the word healed? If you go to the PureFreedom.co website, you'll see the word healed all over the place. And we're talking about being healed from our wounds that we've suffered in life. And the word heal means to become sound or healthy again. All right. To make better, make well, restore, or mend. So if you're addicted to sex and porn, what we have come to understand through our own life experience and talking to other guys is that there's a part of you that's broken inside. Okay, so yes, some of it is habit, but what's beneath the habit? Bad habits don't appear out of nowhere, right? Before a habit formed, something happened to you. Something happened to me. So I once heard a man named Ted Roberts, who runs Pure Desire, say, you were wounded in community, so you need to be healed in community. And what he's talking about is having the support of your groups, the other people you've connected with on this journey on the road to recovery, having that support. So we use the word heal because you've been wounded in some way. And in order for you to live a life of recovery, your wounds have to be healed. So making the decision to stay in recovery, making the decision to pursue a burning desire for freedom is how you can help to heal your wounds. I've listened to a bunch of guys in various recovery groups over the years, and it's very rare that one of them, for it's very rare that none of them have had no childhood trauma. They've had no bullying in their background. They face no rejection from women or other people. They've had no shortcomings in life. All of us that are in recovery that I've talked to have had something that has greatly impacted them in a negative way. And whether we realize it or not, a lot of times those negative experiences are what's pushing us towards pornography, because pornography becomes a coping mechanism to help you deal with the things that you don't want to face from your past or sometimes your present. And I want to say, like, be careful not to disregard what I'm saying just because I'm using the word trauma. All right. There are big T's, big traumas in life, like someone getting raped or, someone being molested as a kid or something like that. And there are little T's in life, like maybe a kid growing up with a parent that neglects them. And there is no way to really know how someone is going to respond to trauma, whether it appears like it's a big trauma to them or a little trauma to you. It's all up to the person and their perspective and how they chose to react and respond to it. There's no way to know how someone's going to respond or react to a traumatic event. But what we do know is that these are the sorts of things that trigger reactions in people to turn to things like pornography. So what am I saying then? What I'm trying to communicate to everyone is, like, you need to try to understand what traumas or what trauma has been in your life and how it's affecting you right now. Because being on the road to recovery can't just be about behavior modification. All right, it has to be about uprooting the deep-seated issues in our lives that have led to the behavior that we're seeing from ourselves. Okay, so what are some practical things we can do to transition our focus to being healed and getting freedom from porn addiction? The first thing I want to suggest that you do is take inventory of your actions. I don't care where you are right now in your recovery journey. Take some time and assess your actions. Are your habits and your beliefs getting you closer to freedom? And I'm not talking about small things like, well, I didn't go to any porn sites for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or whatever. What I'm talking about are other things that people don't normally think about. Like, are you going to bed early? Right? A lot of people watch porn at night. If you're watching at night, go to sleep earlier than you normally would go to sleep. Leave your phone in a different room when you go lay down at night. Don't bring your phone in the bedroom with you. Put it on the counter. Well, I need my alarm clock. Buy an alarm clock. So ask yourself, if there are things that I know I can do to help myself in recovery and I'm not doing those things, why aren't I doing those things? What can I change internally so that I can begin to do those things? That's the first thing. So take inventory of your actions. Second thing you need to do is look inward and be prepared to face your demons. This is the part that's going to go a little deep, but as you take this journey through recovery, there's going to be things that you're going to uproot from your past and maybe even your present, and you got to be prepared to deal with those things. Some of those things could be emotional pain from past trauma. You might discover mental health issues that you didn't know you had. You may end up dealing with some withdrawal symptoms as you abstain from the behavior that you normally would do. Be prepared for that. There may be some instances where you have to go back and heal, reconcile some broken family relationships. So as you look inward, just prepare yourself for being able to face those tough challenges that come along with this journey. The third thing is you need to recognize the role that self-awareness plays in your life. There's something I like to say to the guys in my group sometimes when we're sharing and people are talking about what triggered them from the past week. And one of the things I tend to say is, like, everybody in this group should make an effort to consistently try to raise your self-awareness. You have to become more in tune with your emotions and what you're feeling and why that is. And the reason why that's important is because your emotions are signs, right, of the things that are triggering you. So if you're not emotionally stable, you got to start working to get there. Another thing I would suggest is to set realistic goals. After you take an inventory of your actions, set realistic goals to reverse the behaviors that aren't healthy. One of the things you need to consider doing is creating your own support system. This is different from just attending a support group. I have a list of numbers that I can call when I get triggered, and I have my group as well. Everyone that's in your support system does not have to be in your recovery group. They just need to be someone that cares about you or loves you and wants to see you live a life in recovery. Those are the people you need to have in your support system. Consistently show up to your accountability group. If you're not doing that, that's something that is going to be essential to you, having recovery. And one other little tip I'll give you is to limit how much time you spend on the internet. I know it sounds like simple, but it's very effective. So I'll leave you with that today, guys. Remember, breaking free from porn addiction is a journey. It's a process. It may feel overwhelming at first, but every little step counts. And the more little things that you change about yourself, the more those things compound, and eventually you will be free. Thanks for listening in to today's episode of the Pure Freedom Podcast. I hope today helped you in some way. If you like today's content or know of someone who needs to hear this, please share this episode. If you want to hear stories about people who broke free from porn addiction after years of being addicted, check out our blog at purefreedom.co. See you next time.